right.
Let's go.
Yep, I'm good to go. All right. This is the Peanut Gallery episode 19.
Ish.
No, 20. This is episode 20.
There you go.
How crazy is that? 20 episodes in. All right. Episode 20. Take one.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Peanut Gallery. Today we got with us Brent and Suzanna Smith, and are very excited. Brent was here a few weeks ago, and so Suzanna wanted to straighten out a few things. So we're going to hear the real truth. No, thanks so much for joining us. We want to talk in a few of these podcasts. We want to talk a bit about marriage, talk about some of the challenges of marriage. If any of you guys are married, you know there's challenges. And so we, last week we talked to Jim and Carol, and we talked about fostering and adoption and some of the unique challenges that brings. And so this morning we want to talk with you guys about some of your life and some of your stories. So before we get going and before Brent takes over, Suzanna, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am a local girl. I lived in the Malahide area all my life until just over a year ago when we moved to Petrolia. Not unlike Brent, both of us lived within 20 minutes of where we grew up and our parents up until a year ago. So that was a bit of an adventure moving a little further away than what we're used to. I went to East Elgin, and so I know probably several of your congregants who are about my age.
Did you have Mrs. Horton? Was she there?
I did, yeah.
She's the reason I speak good English.
Damn Horton, yep. Yes, I did have Mrs. Horton. And I went to Fanshawe College for accounting, followed that up with getting my CPA. And
what's CPA? We don't know.
Chartered Professional Accountant. So I'm like an official accountant now.
Sounds fancy.
I know, right?
And smart.
We'll see. So far, I've done okay. I went into public accounting originally, so income taxes, auditing, things like that. And then at a time, and I actually didn't do that very long, about three and a half years. And at the time, I was married, but no kids yet. I was finishing my CPA degree, and just the overwhelming amount of stress of all the things that were going on at the time, because my marriage at the time was struggling then already, even though we hadn't been married very long. School, work, it was, trying to have kids, all of that, all at the same time, that this job came up in Port Burwell for an accounting person to go and work at the municipal office there. And so I sort of fell into the municipal world that way, never intending to stay. Yeah. And even when amalgamations happened in 97, 98, I was pregnant at the time, and I just said, you know what, I'm good. I'll just, go and I'll find something else. And got sucked back in about a year later, and I've never left. So, 26 years in as a municipal treasurer has been interesting, working with lots of different politicians, different things going on from regulatory perspectives from the province, getting to know a lot of people across the province with being involved with the Municipal Finance Officers Association. I now work for the Municipal Finance Officers Association. I left the municipal treasurer side of things, working directly with the municipality, and now work more broadly with all municipalities in, a way that I can support them from a finance perspective.
Oh, cool. I didn't even know those organizations existed. So
they
I'm
do.
learning things here.
There's a few of them around.
So quick scope of what you guys do.
Yeah. As municipal finance officers, so we are your property tax gurus. We take care of the budgets, the financial statements for the municipality. We do all financial reporting. We also support all of the other departments in helping them develop their budgets or finding ways to finance their projects. Fire hall number 5. And doing things like that.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but now that we did.
And,
Thank you,
like
by
that.
the way.
So you're welcome. So it's things like that. We're in the background usually. By the time I meet local people, it's usually because they're not paying their taxes. So, I'm sort of the last line of defense for people to, sort of get their financial things in order from a property tax perspective. I don't get into personal finances or anything, obviously, but
Except for in your marriage, where I would assume you're
except for
quite
in my
involved
marriage,
in.
where yes, I've debated taking his credit card away from time to time, but yes. But outside of that, so I was married previously for 14 years. We have 4 children. I know you were talking about your previous podcast that you were talking about fostering and adopting. I've done both.
Okay.
So my first 2 living in our home were foster adopt children. So they're adopted. And I have 2 who are homegrown. And now I have 2 who are stepchildren. Became an instant grandma the day Brent and I got married.
Wow.
I was not prepared for that.
You're so young.
I know, right?
Right?
It's not possible.
All right, Brent, tell us a little bit about yourself other than the fire world. So we talked last time a lot about the fire world. A little bit about yourself, how you guys, and maybe you can introduce how you guys met and maybe tell us a romantic story about how it all started. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't know that my wife would agree with me getting into those kind of details. However, when I went to work in Malahide, the funny part of that is we didn't hit it off right away.
We did not like each other.
I was quite a bit different than what Suzanna was, I guess. And we didn't quite hit it off at first. But then certainly the longer that we worked together and worked on projects and got to know each other on a personal end, we started to hit it off. And literally we were friends sort of supporting each other and being the blind date, or not the blind date, the companion to different functions, because neither one of us had a significant other in our lives at that point in time. It sort of grew from there. So the interesting part is it grew from not really liking each other at the start, being kind of different as far as personalities are concerned, and then getting to know each other, becoming really good friends, and then recognizing that there was a lot more there. And that's sort of where it went. So our after we decided that it was more than just a friendship, the dating or the courtship, I guess, I don't know what else to call it, only lasted 3 months.
It depends on
3 months from engagement to marriage.
Yes.
6 months. 6 months.
Susanna's looking over, going, "You better get these dates right."
Yeah. Well, when we got married, they put the wrong date on the marriage certificate. So
really?
We can't even get a marriage certificate.
So the difficulty with it is I can never remember truly whether it was December 3rd or December 4th we got married, because one's wrong and one's right. And I always blame the fact that the marriage certificate was wrong. So that's why I'm confused at times.
You would be right if it wasn't for that. I'm sure of it.
I'm
Guys have never forgotten those days.
I'm glad you're so confident in my abilities there, Albert. Abilities of recall, anyhow. So, so it's been 5.5 years, just almost exactly 5.5 years that we've been married, and it's been the best 5.5 years of my life. Absolutely. And our blended family they've done well, and they've adapted well and accepted each other. So that part's great as well.
All right, so let's back up here a little bit. I wanted to talk to Susanna a little bit, because if you guys are watching and you didn't watch the previous one, Brent is a fire chief and has been in emergency services for a lot of years. So I want to talk a little bit about what it's like being a spouse in that regard. Because most of the stuff you would hear in regards to trauma and all that is always from the perspective of the person going through it. And so what's that like going home or having to share a home with Brent on those days? And then maybe, I guess the best way I could frame the question is, what would you say to other spouses of first responders to help them navigate that?
So being married to Brent as a fire chief is a little bit different than, say, Josie being married to you as the one who actually has to go out in the middle of the night and respond to those accidents. But there are times where Brent has still gone out to attend the calls with you guys and deal with things. when Brent comes home and it's been a difficult night, mostly he just needs space. I wait for Brent to be ready to talk about things. And, when we do sit down to talk about it, when Brent's ready, I just listen and, let him run through, what happened and what the scene was like and how the firefighters were affected. Because that's really the primary concern from Brent's perspective, is to make sure that you guys are fine. And listening to all of that, talking about how they deal with the critical incident stress management, which I know you guys talked about on the previous podcast. And that's sometimes the harder part, because we want to ask questions, right? And, just letting the other person be ready to talk about it, but also not letting them wait forever, right? You have to give them time and space, but if they're not talking about it, you start having to ask questions, because you don't want that person to bottle things up and to carry that through, because they can come back to haunt you later on. And I know we've been to places in London during that courtship period and maybe early on in our marriage, where, Brent would suddenly stop talking or just sort of be out of sorts or not connected with what we were doing or the people we were with and stuff like that. And I would have to ask later on, I'm like, well, what happened there? And Brent would explain, oh, that was the scene of, this happening. And it was in, the late 90s, or, it was a long time ago, but it was still really impacted Brent's psyche in terms of being in that location again and, bringing up some of those old, really awful memories. And so listening to that and letting him work through the emotions of that again. And, trying to be supportive and suggesting when you think it's more than you as a spouse can handle and help them work through, saying, hey, you know what, it might be a good time to talk to a counselor or one of your peers on the CISM team again, just to work through some of those emotions, because they do build up over time. And you might think that you as a firefighter are handling things well, and probably you are, but they do pile up. And at some point, there will be something that becomes extra impactful on you, where suddenly it's not okay. You're not okay. And you don't understand where that came from. And every once in a while, it pops out in Brent's reactions to things that have happened or places that we have been where memories are turned up, that we have to, just talk about things again and work through the emotions that come with it.
Awesome. That's some great advice. Because I know sometimes coming home, especially working in a volunteer world like this, you go by those scenes regularly. Yeah. Most intersections I've been to.
This is home, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so then as a spouse, I know often Joe's like, I don't actually know what to tell you. And I'm like, I don't know if you need to, but somehow being able to retell that story and being able to, it helps your brain kind of process that. And so I really like that. That's great. Okay. Let's move on a little bit back to your marriage. So you brought up the idea of blended. And so I want to back up even just a little bit more. So both of you guys have gone through divorce. And divorce is incredibly difficult and painful. And it is something that a lot of people are experiencing. And even if they don't experience divorce, they certainly experience struggle within a marriage. And lots of people who are living together are struggling a lot. What is it, and I don't even know exactly how to word this question right, but how do you recover from divorce to open yourself up to love again? Because I think that's part of the challenge. When you've been hurt, the easiest thing to do is to just push people away, but that's not a good place to live. And so maybe you guys can talk about how do you, obviously you guys didn't like each other at first. And I'm not saying that has to do with Brent's spending habits, but I'm assuming that was a part of it. I don't know. But how do you get past that? And maybe you don't have a full, clear answer, but I think it's an important thing because I think a lot of people are stuck there where it's like, I've been hurt. And how do I learn to trust again? How do I learn to open myself up again?
One of the things I feel that's really, really important is that obviously the failure of a relationship, the failure of a marriage isn't just the other person's fault. So I believe before you can move on, and look at a new relationship and a new love is the fact that you have to own the part of the failure of your previous relationship and not just be the person to cast blame on on the other person, that it was all your ex-spouse's fault. Because when you do sit back and look at it, even if they acted poorly, there may have been things that you did that triggered that, or that you could have done something differently to support them through their issues. So, or being more patient or more helpful. So I think the real important part is to accept your part of the failure, understand it, and try to ensure that that doesn't happen. Communication, obviously, is, to me, the very largest part. And I think that's where one of our strengths is, that there's absolutely nothing that's off limits in conversation or to talk about. Some of the things that I am the most shameful of, or the most ashamed of, that I've done in my life previously, I have absolutely shared, though, that Suzanna's the only person I've ever shared that information with, because I don't want to hold any secrets.
Right.
And I want every part of me to be known, almost to the point of that being extremely vulnerable by doing that. But I think that's really important, because if you're hiding and holding out, those are things that can sabotage your new relationship. So to me, that's what I feel was most important to be able to move on, is to accept my part of the failure in the past.
Well, I think that's honestly one of the most important life skills to learn, period. If you can own your own things, like if you refuse to admit that you're a part of the problem, you can never actually fix that. And so you can go into a new relationship or a new job or a new situation, but in the end, you still bring the same baggage with you.
Yes.
And so, no, that's really good. I love that. What about you, Santa?
So everything that Brent said, I definitely agree with. Communication is key. It's key to a successful relationship. It's key to overcoming some of the issues that then pop up after your divorce. It's key to entering a new relationship. One of the really important things, I think, post-divorce separation, you need to give yourself time to work through the issues. You should not be moving into another relationship right away. You should not be setting up a new relationship before you're out of the first one. That just goes without saying, but there's a lot of people out there who do that.
Right.
It's really important. And learning to be alone but not lonely is really important, because if you're not capable of being alone, meaning not having a partner on your arm, you're never really going to be able to enter into a relationship in a healthy way, because you have to be your own person. And that other person also needs to be their own person, because that's a big part of how a husband and wife should be able to connect.
Right.
And it takes time. And the experts, whoever the experts are, recommend about a year. And I would say that that's true. It takes time just to, work through the emotions. You can say, well, I'm fine. Yes, today.
Right.
But something's going to happen, or somebody's going to say something or do something that's going to send you off the deep end at some point.
Right.
It just happens, because there are lots of hurts and wounds and emotions that probably weren't dealt with well at the time, because you were going through so much that you just need to deal with them and learn to heal them. And I recommend counseling to everybody on the planet for whatever it is that you're going through, but definitely as you try and set yourself up and work through some of these things, I would strongly recommend counseling for, most people. And even now I had a lot of time, over 11 years on my own raising my kids before I, met Brent. Dated a little bit in there. Most of it, it's like, oh, how do I get rid of you?
Right.
So they didn't last very long.
Yeah.
It's just, I really wasn't really into it for the most part, right? Other than Brent, there was really only one relationship that lasted any length of time. Most of them were within 2 or 3 dates. I'm like, okay, I gotta get out of this. This is just not for me, right? But if you can't be alone, surrounded by friends, family, active in your community, engaged in your church or whatever it is that you're into, those are all really important parts of learning to be alone, being independent in who you are, knowing who you are, so that when you enter into another relationship, you're not still finding yourself. You're not having to help the other person find themselves, because they should also be in that same position, right? And
so I don't know if you guys can answer this on a practical level, but when people are hearing that, they're like, "Yeah, I know that makes sense. Take accountability." I love your phrase about not feeling alone, even though you are alone. I don't remember how you worded it exactly.
Alone but not lonely.
That's so much better than what I said. All right. But what are some practical things? So how do you navigate that? Like, what are some things that you did that you feel like, because I chose these things, it helped me get to that place?
Pick your friends wisely. Know who are going to love you and support you in a positive way, who are not going to rehash, all the things that went wrong in your marriage previously, because dwelling on those past negativities and disrespecting your former spouse is not healthy for you. It's not healthy for the people around you. It's not helpful.
Right.
So pick your friends wisely. Surround yourself with 2, 3, maybe 4 really close people that you can talk to that can, hold you accountable. If you have, I struggled with, okay, how do I remember to reach out to those people? So I had a little list on my bathroom mirror. It says, this week you're going to call so-and-so and you're going to just talk to them. This weekend, you're going to make plans with this person, so that you weren't lonely, because that's really important. You have people to talk to, but knowing that they're the right people also to talk to, right? So that you've got friends who can help you be accountable, help you not be lonely, because as soon as you are, you're going to do unhealthy things.
Right.
And to help you be your own self and to be independent. Again, it's a lot of work. Making notes to yourself really helps to remind you, making those plans ahead of time so that you've got something to look forward to, right? Oh, it's Saturday. I'm doing this. I'm going to make plans for next weekend now so that I know that I've got something to look forward to next Saturday night or Friday night, whatever, you're looking for. So, but surrounding yourself with good people who are going to be positive and supportive is really important.
Awesome. What would you say, Brent? Because all of us want to be accountable. We all want to own our stuff. But it's just so easy to blame. It's so easy to... So how do you, on a practical level, how do you get to a place where you kind of see your own stuff or work to see your own stuff and deal with it?
Well, I think that that's the part. It's looking inward as much as you possibly can. And certainly having those people around you that are going to give you the honest truth about yourself or about the things that you're doing that are not healthy and not helpful. So I agree. Family is a big part of it as well. Put them first, because that is, that's the important part. But no, I would agree with everything that Suzanna has, and again, always plan things ahead, healthy things ahead, so it does give you something to look forward to. And not just dwell on the loneliness or dwell on all the negative aspects that come from a marriage or a relationship breakup.
Right.
So I don't know. I think that's the key. And so when you're with someone, and when I say with someone, I refer to for my kids and grandkids as well, is be completely involved in them at the time that you're with them. Don't dwell. Don't think of the negative things that have happened to you. Look forward and look to the positive things of the future.
Awesome.
I think that's really another really important aspect, is to know your priorities. And if you're not sure, rely on those people that are close to you to help you. If you have children, they are your priority. They are, and you can't forget that. And that has to be helping them through the process as well. Your job is your priority. You can't, start bailing on your job. You need to be able to do it well and help you focus there. So you might need an office partner who could help you through that when you're struggling on those difficult days. Cleaning your house taking care of yourself, right? Know your priorities. And if you need to, ask somebody to help you set those and remind you what they are.
I think having those healthy, so when you're feeling down, I guess more than anything else, is to have those healthy habits that you can turn to assist you, whether that's going for a walk or working out, or with me, my mental health comes from cleaning my cars and listening to music. But it will break that that sort of depressive cycle to me where I'm thinking bad things, and snap me back into reality and recognize that it's not all that bad.
Completely off topic, but favorite musician, who would you listen to first?
Oh, so many.
Anything from the 80s.
80s. Because that was when you were in your 40s, right?
80s.
No?
Yeah.
Too soon. No.
That's when I had hair. It's like I've said in the past, when I drive my Corvette with the roof down, part of the reason of having that car is because I feel like I'm 20 years younger, 30 pounds lighter, and I have hair.
Right. And it's flowing. It is flowing. It is beautiful. All right, so let's transition a little bit. So you guys, this last couple of months have been incredibly challenging. And so we wanted to talk about this for a little bit. So why don't you give us a little bit of, Suzanne, I don't know if you want to start.
Sure. Talk
to us a little bit about how this whole thing with cancer happened. How did you find out? What's that process been like?
So I had no symptoms of any kind until about last September when I noticed some small amounts of blood in my stool, and waited a couple months thinking, I probably just irritated my bowels. I'll just be more careful in what I'm eating, stuff like that. But it really didn't go away. So I called the doctor because we're in the middle of a pandemic. It takes time to see the doctor. It takes time to go in for the tests and everything. So it was actually March before I went in for a colonoscopy to find out what's going on. So at that time, the doctor did tell me that I had a tumor in my upper part of my rectum where the colon connects with the rectum. But that was really all that was said. Sent for a few more tests. So March 11 is when I received a preliminary diagnosis that I had colorectal cancer. And 4 days later, I went to meet with the oncologist who told me I had advanced stage 4 colorectal cancer. So stage 4, for those who don't know, means it's metastasized or spread to another part of your body. And advanced means nobody noticed, and it's really progressed in terms of the growth and the spread. So in my case, it has spread to my liver, which is not uncommon with colorectal cancer because the blood flow from your intestines goes directly to the liver to be cleansed before being sent back into the rest of your body. So the liver did its job very well. Unfortunately, it retained all of those cancerous cells, and I have a number of tumors in the liver as well. So between March 11 and April 1st, I met with 8 different doctors.
Oh, wow.
Had a few other tests. April 1st, I had surgery. April 6th, I started radiation for 5 days. April 13, I had my first chemo treatment. I felt like my body was under attack at that point in time. So I'm about halfway through my first round of chemo. I've had 3. Number 4 is next week. There's 2 more after that. And then they'll do a reassessment at that point in time to see how things are progressing.
Okay, so let's break that down a little bit because this is sadly one of the things that a lot of people are going to face. And so part of I just want to say thank you for sharing this with us. I know this has not been easy. I'm going to cry before you guys cry. Shoot. Send me like a Trevor. I just want to say thanks. Thanks. Before we get into it, but hearing the word cancer is a terrifying word for all of us. Mm-hmm. It's one of the words we dread hearing. Maybe I'll start with you, Suzanne. What did you do to get through that diagnosis? Like, what are some of the habits? Because I know you're a very strong woman. At least Brent speaks very highly of you that way. But for somebody who's facing this, what are some of the things that you, I guess, are currently doing to keep yourself sane and positive? What does that look like on a day-to-day basis?
I don't even know where to start. So I'll just sort of jump in the middle and I might bounce back and forth here a little bit. But I have continued to work. It gives me something else to think about and something else to do. I have an incredibly supportive and understanding employer because I can work from home exclusively. The office is actually in Toronto. I will always work from home for this particular employer, but very supportive. I can work whenever I have the energy and the time. So, the other day I was sending out emails at 2:00 in the morning because that's when I was awake and felt rested enough to deal with some things. Really supportive and having something else to do and to not necessarily think about, what I'm going through is really helpful. Having people to connect with, just to talk to, again, important. Some close friends. My sister is my best friend, always has been. We have always talked almost every day. She lives in a completely different province. She's in Nova Scotia. So, but we've always been like that. She has been, a really great support. There are times where the emotions are somewhat overwhelming, and I'll call her and I'll just say, "Cry with me," and she does. I can hear her crying on the other end. So it's, having somebody to just sit with, and they don't do anything. They don't necessarily provide, words of support or whatever, but they just sit with you and bear the emotions with you. And then hopefully, certainly from my sister, she sort of distracts me and we talk about things and she makes me laugh and I can pull myself together again and move on. Being able to spend time, with Brent is great. He's been so supportive, even taking, a leave from work, because for a while there, especially in March, but also in early April, we were going to see a doctor almost every other day. At post-surgery, I certainly couldn't drive. And then pre-surgery, I was just way too preoccupied to be able to drive safely, probably. Okay. So, it was really good that he was able to be home with me and support me and provide a lot of encouragement. I've had a lot of people reach out and, neighbors, coworkers, friends, providing, whatever support they can. People just want to help. And sometimes all it is you got a pile of mulch in the laneway and they just come and they stand there with you, right? Yeah. Or they'll shovel while you cart it around. They just want to help and they just want to be there with you. And letting those people come in is also good because it provides you a bit of a distraction. Right. It lets you know that you are loved and supported. But truly, if I didn't have God, I don't know how I would get through this. I talk to him every day. My most common prayer is, "Carry me." But he's there, and I know that, and it helps a lot. Don't you cry, because I'm not going to stop.
I'm trying very hard over here. No, sometimes in these small rooms, the allergies, especially certain time of the year.
Right?
Pollen season is terrible.
Terrible.
I had a former pastor who would say he had fruit flies attacking his eyeballs.
That's good. I should use that. That's a very good vivid imagery.
I know, right?
In the world. All right, Brent. So from a spouse's standpoint, what has that been like?
Well, very difficult because there's not, and certainly in our line of work as first responders, we're rescuers,
right?
And we always want to be there to to help, to save, to do all those things. And it's a bit of a helpless feeling when the person that you love has been diagnosed with this terrible disease. And there's not a lot you can do except to support them and do the things that they're not capable of doing for themselves, and encourage as much as possible. And, this awful COVID has made things even more difficult in that there were delays, obviously, in being able to have the test done. I don't think, and we've discussed this with the doctors, that it would have made much difference finding it a few months earlier. But everything that Suzanna has to experience. So April 1st, when I had to drop her off at University Hospital at the front door, and she had to go in and take care of all of this on her own because I wasn't allowed in. And then meeting with the oncology team, I sat across the street in a parking lot, and they at least called me, and I had them on speakerphone. But most of these things that she's had to endure, she's had to do on her own because I haven't been able to be there, which is difficult. One of the things, though, when she did come home after the surgery, that has still to this day helped me a lot, was my daughter, Emily, came over from Michigan, who's a paramedic, and as you had said, is a female me. And
Truly.
she had the strength that I couldn't muster at the time, and she was able to really, really help.
Mm.
And that renewed me and gave me the ability to keep going. But it's difficult to watch somebody else suffer and you not be able to take it on yourself.
Right.
So that part is tough. But one of the things, I guess, the positive sides of this is the day after the diagnosis, I tossed and turned and didn't sleep worth a crap that night. Yeah. And I'm sure that Susanna didn't either. But when I finally got up in the morning and I came out into the living room, Suzanna was doing what she always does every morning, or starts her day off with, is reading her Bible. Mm. So I thought, when I came out and saw her doing that, it made me recognize that not that she's accepted it so much, but she's going to get through it. And it's not going to change who she is. And she wasn't lashing out, in a sense, wondering why this could happen to her. She was working her way through it and putting her trust in God that whatever presents itself, God will deal with, and we will and give us the strength together to be able to deal with this. So, but the family support and the our neighbors have been unbelievable. We're the only couple that are not retired, so they all keep telling us they have lots of time. But as Suzanna mentioned, down to shoveling mulch in the laneway to the neighbors coming over and chipping in, or bringing us a meal, or offering to take her to chemo if I can't, or doing just about anything for us that we need, and family doing the same thing. And again, the part that sucks about going through these things is your family can't come over and be as big a part of everything as they normally would due to COVID. Emily being able, and Kyle and the grandbabies being able to come over from Michigan, not easy. She finds a way because she's that person. And Jeff, my son, is in BC, and I know he feels helpless. But that's difficult too, knowing that your family can't necessarily do what they want to do because of COVID. I know Suzanna's mom and dad feel that way. They offer and they're phoning all the time, but feel a little bit like, the restrictions that are in place stopping them from doing more. And everybody's been that way, from the firefighters to, all the people that I work with that have been so fantastic. So that's the support side that helps you carry on and keep going. But, she's been incredibly strong. She pushes through every single day. She makes it as normal as possible, and we're on a journey. And I've said we're moving down this road, and each day we're another step further to the end. And that's what we're putting our faith in, and knowing that we're about to have number 4 of 6 treatments, and hopefully when all the tests are done after that it's gone, or that at minimal it's arrested enough that further surgery will eliminate it. And that's where we're at, and that's what we're going to continue to pray for and believe to be the truth.
Okay. Well, I just want to say we were praying for you guys.
Thank you.
I have certainly mentioned to you several times that you've been a huge influence in our life and in my life personally. And I've been able to come to you a few times in the office and cry about my own life. And so it's nice to see that I can do something for you for once.
You have.
Thank you guys for sharing. I know this has not been easy, but I do think it's just like trauma when we talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about it, and yet so many people go through it. And so thanks for sharing some of the things that you guys are doing. You guys are an inspiration to many, and will continue to inspire in the way you guys are blending your family, and the way you guys love each other, and the way you're facing cancer head on. And we have certainly been praying that the same as you guys, that this cancer goes away. I know there are millions around the world praying for a cure.
Yes.
It has been a terrible disease that has ravaged a lot of families, and it is part of the challenge of being human, knowing that these diseases exist. So I would invite you guys, I know not everybody who follows the Peanut Gallery is Christian, but to be praying for Brent and Suzanna, to join them in that. And just know you guys have a ton of support. And day by day, you guys can reach out if you need. I know you guys live a little far away, but that's okay. We need an escape sometimes from Malahide anyway. So
Right.
know that we're here for you guys. Thanks again. And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Thank you.